On January 3rd, 2022, a harrowing 911 call shattered the quiet of Slaughter, Louisiana. It came from the home of Sheila and Clay Fletcher, reporting the death of their 36-year-old daughter, Lacey Ellen Fletcher. When authorities arrived, they were met with an unimaginable scene. Lacey's emaciated body lay fused to the very couch she had been confined to for years, covered in sores, waste, and evidence of profound neglect. This is the heart-wrenching story of Lacey Fletcher, a young woman who endured unimaginable suffering behind closed doors, and the disturbing truth that finally came to light after her death. Lacey Ellen Fletcher was born in 1985 in the small town of Slaughter, Louisiana. As a child, she was known for her radiant smile and kind nature. But as she grew older, Lacey faced challenges that set her apart. Social anxiety and autism-related difficulties made it hard for her to navigate school and social situations. Her parents, Sheila and Clay Fletcher, chose to homeschool her, a decision that would eventually lead to complete isolation from the outside world. What began as a protective measure spiraled into a nightmare of neglect and abuse that no one outside the family suspected. By the time Lacey was 36, she hadn't left the confines of her parents' home in years. She spent more than a decade confined to a single couch, out of sight and forgotten by everyone who once knew her. On the morning of January 3rd, 2022, Sheila and Clay Fletcher made a desperate 911 call, reporting that their daughter Lacey was unresponsive. First responders arrived to find a scene they would never forget. Lacey's frail body was fused to the living room couch, surrounded by filth and waste. Her skin, broken and ulcerated, was adhered to the fabric of the couch. She had not moved from that spot in years. Even experienced paramedics were shaken by the sight. Lacey weighed only 96 pounds at the time of her death, and it was evident that she had suffered tremendously. Authorities soon realized that Lacey had been living in these horrific conditions for over a decade with no medical care or intervention. As investigators dug deeper into Lacey's life, they uncovered a disturbing pattern of neglect. Lacey hadn't seen a doctor in over a decade, and her parents admitted that she had not left the couch since around 2010. They claimed she had refused to move or get up, and while they allegedly fed her and cleaned her wounds from time to time, it was clear that Lacey had been left to wither away. The autopsy confirmed the full extent of Lacey's suffering. She died from severe malnutrition, dehydration, and sepsis, a systemic infection that resulted from the untreated wounds covering her body. The medical examiner noted that Lacey's condition had deteriorated so severely that parts of her body had begun to break down, essentially rotting in place. Her cause of death was officially ruled as chronic neglect, with sepsis and immobility listed as contributing factors. The report painted a bleak picture of a young woman who had been deprived of the most basic care, left to endure a slow and painful death. In the wake of the investigation, Sheila and Clay Fletcher were charged with second-degree murder. Prosecutors argued that the couple's deliberate neglect and failure to provide care directly led to Lacey's death. Despite having the means and opportunity to seek help, the Fletchers isolated Lacey, subjecting her to a living hell of suffering and neglect. Images from the scene, along with the details of Lacey's condition, shocked not only the local community but people across the world. Many question how such extreme neglect could go unnoticed for so long, and why no one had stepped in to save her. The small town of Slaughter, Louisiana, was left reeling from the revelations. Neighbors described the Fletcher family as quiet and private, with no indication that such a tragedy was unfolding inside their home. People struggled to comprehend how someone could endure such horrific conditions without any intervention from friends, family, or social services. Lacey's death raised difficult questions about the responsibilities of caregivers and the failures of the system to protect vulnerable individuals. Her story became a powerful reminder of the need for vigilance and intervention in cases of suspected abuse or neglect. During the trial, the prosecution presented overwhelming evidence of Lacey's neglect, including the autopsy results and harrowing images from the scene. The defense argued that the Fletchers had attempted to care for their daughter, but the evidence showed otherwise. It was clear that Lacey's death was the result of years of sustained neglect and abuse. In 2023, Sheila and Clay Fletcher were found guilty of second-degree murder. They were sentenced to 20 years in prison. Justice, though long overdue, was finally served for Lacey. Lacey Ellen Fletcher's story is one of profound suffering, hidden behind the closed doors of her own home. Her tragic death serves as a sobering reminder that neglect can be as deadly as physical abuse. It's our duty as a society to protect those who cannot protect themselves, and to speak up when we see signs of harm. What are your thoughts on the tragic death of Lacey Fletcher? How can we prevent cases like this from happening in the future? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you for watching.